Hi, folks. This is episode 9 of Motherhood, Money, and Mental Health. I am your host, Waddie.
I'm your co-host, Sammy Joseph Fredericks. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. And today we are going to be joined by our special guest, Mrs. Jamesetta Diggs, who's going to be talking to us a little bit about a topic that she holds dear to her heart. Today we're going to be talking about raising social, emotionally competent children. Welcome, Jamesetta.
Thank you, Wade. It's nice to be
Hi.
here.
Yeah. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you
us
so
today.
much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Well, I am doing okay considering everything that's going around us and just processing where we are at this time. It's
Yeah.
tough, but
Mhm.
I think we can make it through it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, we've seen this stuff on the news over and over, right? It's been happening for a long time. It's been happening. We've seen it, but for some reason, for me, this one for me just like struck a nerve. And like last week when I saw part, I couldn't even watch the full video. I saw parts of it and I cried like a baby. I cried. It's just like, this is 2020. When is this going to be over? When is this going to be done? All of this hate, right? And just and I think what has really helped is just seeing how our allies have stepped up
Oh, yes.
and almost like joined us on the front of this stuff, and like, you know what, enough is enough. It's just been too much.
Yeah.
I was saying
It
today,
is.
today is the first day that I didn't cry, is what I said, right?
Mm.
Today is the first day, and nope, I decided to watch that video of those people on 35W and the guy who had the bullhorn was speaking, and then at some point, just inciting the crowd, and at some point he broke down crying, and I was just like, oh no, here it is again,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just so powerful. It's just emotional, and I just hope something good come out of all of
Yeah.
this. Let
Yeah.
there be a change. Enough is
Yeah.
That is the hope, that there should be a change.
Mm-hmm.
Something
yeah,
should
Mm-hmm.
happen. We want results.
Yeah.
And we want to see it in our time because, we have children, we are
Right.
mothers, we are
Yeah.
yes,
wives, we're sisters.
yes,
We want to see something change for our children and for the future.
Yeah.
yeah,
And that
Yeah.
is
yeah,
the hope,
yeah. I
Yeah.
agree.
no?
I
Yeah.
agree. But um, without taking too much time, let's just get into the episode. So today, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about raising socially, emotionally competent children. Um, James, Elta, tell us a little bit about yourself and why this subject is so passionate for you. Such a passion.
Um, Wade, I'm a wife and a mother of two wonderful children.
Mhm.
And I have grown up in a situation where, we have to make decisions. We have to meet people. Life is social. We all have to work with people. We have to form and establish and maintain relationships. And those skills, when we don't have it, it's devastating when you get to a place and you realize, how do you process through a situation?
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with how somebody's treating you? Dealing with your emotions, dealing with your choices, dealing with all the things that with people as a whole. You work, you have relationships and all of those things. And coming up as a person, all the mistakes and all the ways that I was brought up has affected me so much, and I don't want that for my children or for the children that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has brought me to the place to make a decision. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. And I've worked with children for over 15 years, young children. I started off as a volunteer Sunday school teacher. And then I found myself teaching preschool, self-taught. Everything that I knew in the classroom was something that I pick up from a book or something I had seen somewhere. But the passion has always been there to work with children and see children thrive and grow into responsible adults. And so that's where I am. That's my passion.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what social emotional competence is. What does that look like in young children?
First, I would like to say that the competence as a whole is the ability to be able to make those decisions that you have to make in life, to be able to form or establish and maintain positive relationships. It's also about empathy, showing empathy or feelings or expressing your emotions or your thoughts. But in young children, it's about developing the capacity for them to reach to that place.
Mm-hmm.
So we see that adults, we have to make those decisions. But then as young children, we have to start them off, because as they're growing up, they make friendships and they have to make decisions. We have to see that they can make their own choices and trust their choices.
Mm-hmm.
So the competence is when we reach to the place, but for young children, we have to be able to start them on their way and develop that capacity to get them to the competence level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like, how would you know then? What's the evidence out there that makes you know that a person is on their way to being socially, emotionally competent? What's the proper term? Because I feel like I'm just putting an ly on the end of everything. So is it social emotional competence?
It's either way. It could be social competence, it can be emotional competence, it can be both. So we can look at it as a whole, because that's how development is for young children. It's a whole. It's connected to every other thing. Their physical development is connected to their intellect, is connected to every aspect of their lives. And so when we see that they're developing that capacity, we're seeing them being able to say, I need help. You know, a child will not break down when, yes, children do break down. You're frustrated about something. You get to the point of frustration, but then you're able to say, I really need help with this. Or you're at a place where somebody is like in your face and doing something you don't like, and a little child can say, stop, I really don't like it when you do this to me. And that's getting them to that place. Or a child can tell you, well, mommy, you said this to me, but I didn't like it. And reaching to that point where they're able to express themselves, or they can say, I feel sad today. I really don't feel good. I really don't feel like it. And you know, we as adults, we get those feelings.
Oh, yeah.
You get to work someday and you like, I'm under the weather today. And we get to the place where we're like, look, you know what? I'm just not up to it. I feel sad. Something affected me. Somebody died from me. And you feel that way. Why can't a child feel that way? Why should we shame them for their emotions?
Yeah.
And so we try to teach children that, look, there is no wrong feeling. There is nothing bad about your feelings. Feelings are just things people experience. But we want to get to the place where we can manage our feelings. I'm sad, so I can tell you I'm sad. And it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be excited and want to hit the ceiling. It's okay. And that's some of the things we're trying to, when we can see those things in children, then we know they are getting to that place where they're able, like, even with friendships, they're able to say, oh, I can wait. You can go ahead. Or can ask, check on a friend. I always ask my children, did you check on their feelings? Did you check to see how they were feeling? Say, are you okay? I know you're not feeling okay right now. What can I do to help? Those are things that we see. Those are signs that tell us that, yes, my child is on the way, or this child is on the way to developing that competency.
Wow.
Yeah, so no, I totally agree with you, but and we're all Liberian women here on this in this meeting, right? And when I think back about how we grew up, right? Nobody talked to us about, oh, how are you feeling? You know, can you let's talk about, you know, how you're feeling and how can I help support you, you know, with those feelings and all of that. We didn't get that, right? You were yelled at. Even if you were not encouraged to express yourself, let alone feelings. You know, feelings are not something that we really talk about. Showing empathy for other people, you know, we were not taught to do that. If somebody's feeling down, you know, take a moment, maybe, you know, try to find out what's going on with them and be kind to them. So, you know, I know a lot of people, a lot of kids, like, for example, with our background, didn't get those, you know, that that help or training or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So what does that, and I'm sure you alluded to some of them, right? But what does that look like in an adult who didn't get that, right?
Right.
Yeah, like you go to work and yeah, sometimes you're not feeling, like you feel like, sometimes you go, or maybe you're supposed to go to work and you don't feel like it. And you just like, you know what, I'm just going to call in today. Or you have this, we're not able to manage tough conversations, right, with people. Like if somebody,
Right.
do something to offend you, we can't talk about it. We keep it inside and then blow up, little. So talk about, a little bit about how that shows up as adults if they're not, addressed as kids, with kids.
Oh yeah, I can clearly relate to that. See, I mean, I'm telling you, because that brings me to my journey as a mother.
Right.
Growing up like in a family or with a mother or parent or parents where you are not able to like give feedback.
Mm-mm.
If your parent is talking to you and you look at them and say, "Why are you looking at me?" Don't look at me. And
Don't cry.
you have to keep your head down while your parents talking to you, or you have to keep moving. I know that like our society taught us to like our parents had high demands for us, but we didn't have any feedback. We're
Mm-mm.
either right or wrong. We're either doing it or not doing it. And I can relate to that um, completely. So as a parent, as a mother, that has been one of my greatest challenges, like just figuring it out. I mean, I read a lot. I've learned a lot about child development, about how to like just raise children up and just work with their development and every part of them. But then I have learned it differently. It's been hard. It's been challenging, and I'll tell you, one of the things that I've come to realize is help my children to understand where I'm from. So at first I would be ashamed. I would feel guilty about screaming and yelling at them, because I do. It's going down, but I do. I
Yeah,
yell.
it's hard.
I sometimes tell them, don't talk back to me. I do that because that's how I was raised. And there are so many parents out there who like want the best for their children. They want to do it differently. They find out, oh, I've just learned this thing, I want to do it. But there's a difference in knowing, and there's a difference in wanting, and there in relation to doing. I mean, I study every other book that I could find about child development. I read it, and I want the best for my kids. But emotions are involved.
Hmm.
Our own personality is involved. So what I've come to reconcile is not to shame myself. Sometimes I tell my children, look, this is how I was raised. I tell them a lot about my background, and helping them respect where I come from will also help them appreciate who I am and why I do the things that I do. So I tell them where I come from. And then what I do sometimes is like, it's okay to go back to them and tell them, look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I yelled at you, but I was really, really mad. And sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes it's the next day, and they would tell me, I'm really sorry that I frustrated you, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the idea is that at first I was feeling guilty about it. Like when I yelled at them, I feel so guilty. I'm the worst parent ever. But then I started realizing, look, I am not the most terrible person in the world, because I am proud of who I am and what my parents raised me to be. Yes, there were a little bit mistakes here and there, and every system has a side effect. Even the system that we're trying to portray for our children today, like with the competency and everything, it has side effects. So with my parents bringing me up and with our setting that we grew up in, yes, there are side effects, but we are who we are today because our parents were hard on us. We are who we are because of some of the decisions that they made for us, even though we would have done it differently. But the thing is, I have come to accept who I am and not shame myself for the upbringing that I've had. But then I've also opened my mind to be able to learn something new. Like, look, I grew up in a different culture, but my children are growing up in a different culture.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I have to do to be able to accept and to be able to merge something that would benefit them. So that's the place where we have to have that middle ground to reach. Like, oh yes, I'm not ashamed of what how my mother raised me, but I'm also not going to let my children shame me for the way I was raised. I will respect that, and then I'll tell them, look, I was raised this way, and then this is this is where we are right now, and this is where we are going. And so merge the two. I still respect you guys. I respect where you are. I respect your feelings. Sometimes I will forget because of the way I was raised, but I'll come back to you and say, my child, I'm sorry. And let's talk about it, you know? And that's just how we just have to look at it.
You made
So
some
what?
really.
You want to go ahead,
There we
Waddie?
go. You made some really great points, just listening to it, because I can be sort of like a systemic, step-by-step thinker, It sounds like, the first step obviously in my head is like, first of all, you got to be aware of it, right? Awareness of the fact that I came from a different background, and this background would produce this kind of person. But I want my kid in this place that we're at now to be this kind of person in the future. And so here are the things I need to like to do myself. I mean, you talked a lot about like reading and becoming more aware of, things out there. But what were some other things that you can say that were like daily things you did? Like one thing I heard you talk about, okay, just listening to yourself and understanding, okay, I just yelled in this situation. I could have done it differently. So now I'm going to come back and rectify the situation, because sometimes we think when we made a mistake, it's a mistake that's gone, but you can't,
Yeah.
it's not lost. You can always go back and then,
Right.
talk it over with the kids. So what are some other like barriers, struggles and things that you had to do regularly in order to like ensure that you were, consciously trying to raise your children to be social, emotional beings?
Yeah. So one of the things I do is I tell my son, my daughter, she would do it, but my son is like, he would have the challenge that I tell him, when I'm screaming, tell me, mama, you're screaming.
Mm.
You
I
know,
do.
like,
Yeah.
sometimes whether we expect them to do certain things that we haven't taught them,
Mm-hmm.
and so for that reason, it's like you are in a moment, your emotions have taken over,
Mm-hmm.
but just a gently reminder. It's almost like you telling them when they're doing something, like you're reminding them, remember, we do not leave our food, our stuff on the table when we're done eating. Can
Mm-hmm.
you clear your table? So it's the same thing. When I start yelling, I tell my son, if I'm yelling, talk to me. Tell me,
Mm-hmm.
mama, you're yelling at me and I don't like it. I know it's hard. For my daughter, it's not hard to say. For my son, it's a challenge for him to tell me I'm yelling. So if he's in that state of not being able to say it, sometimes I just have to draw back and just retreat. And then after I retreat, we can talk about it. But most times I just retreat from the situation and walk away. I'm like, I'm frustrated right now. I'm walking away. And I take a break. And it's okay to take a break. Sometimes you don't have to like respond within the situation. You can just look at it and know that you're gonna react, and you just walk away from that
Just walk away.
situation. Yeah. Sometimes I walk away. Sometimes I will say something in my voice. I will see myself raising my voice, and then I have to calm down. But it's more of like learning about yourself and learning about your children. Like, I know how to deal with the two of them. So, and parents, you see, we parents, we are the best observers.
Mm-hmm.
We are the best. You know your child better than anybody. There is no, I mean, there are good research out there. There are good information out there. And I always say one of the things that make me successful as a early childhood professional is observing children. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of the best things you can do, because the research is there. If you haven't observed that child to know who that child is, you can't apply that research to that child. You will apply, but it would be of no use. So knowing your children, parents know their children well. They can wake up in the morning and say, look, my child will not eat this. My child will eat this. So being able to observe who the children are and how to relate to them. Like my daughter, like she's in the moment. She's in the moment, and I will like talk to her in the moment, and she will like cry, but then afterwards she will be fine. But my son, he would be in that moment and he will go into a flight or a freeze mode.
Mm.
So when I get to that point where I'm talking to him, why did you do that? Why did you do that? He'll be like, he's not going to say anything. He would not say a word. And it would take some time for me to realize, look, you put that child in freeze mode. You have to be able to come to yourself. And sometimes it's hard, Waddie. I would admit, it's really hard. But it's just like constantly doing it over and over and trying. I have a big statement right over my mirror in the morning that I see say, it's okay to try again today.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to try again.
I like those little reminders though.
Yeah, I
You know,
like the
it just,
example. I like the
yeah, that's
example
awesome.
too. Hmm.
Hmm.
I know
And I
for
feel
us,
like, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, no, I was gonna say that, for us, you were talking about, how you try to remind Ash and Tia that, you tell them that, yeah, we all have emotions, these things happen, and but you also let them know that you're human, you're not super, right? You're not like superwoman and you have everything all together and you're perfect, because our kids learn from us, right? I like that, exactly what you do with them. I tell Luke, you know what, sometimes I will get to the place where I forget and I can't control my emotions, but I want you to remind me. And now we even started we did a jar, so we like money business. So if anybody yells or whatever, and yeah, or blows their top, we'll put money in the jar for somebody else, right? And so those, just those little things to we got to constantly, like you say, it's embedded in us. So we have to constantly remind ourselves that these kids are watching us and they're learning from us. If I
Yes.
yell at my son, I'm teaching him to yell at other people or to yell back at me.
Right.
If I don't respect him, as young as he is, I'm also teaching him not to be very respectful to other people or to me, right? So we're teaching, whether we're intentionally doing it or not. They're watching us and they're learning from us. So for me, that's a reminder. It's just like constantly, this boy is watching. He's watching, I don't want him yelling at other people or thinking this is the way to communicate because it's okay in our family. This is what we do. Nobody apologize when they do this stuff,
Right.
right?
Yes. You can say sorry when you do something. I mean, you're teaching them to say sorry. Like sometimes when they do stuff and I talk about it, I really didn't like when you did that. So there are so many things I'm doing. I'm affirming my feelings. I'm telling them how I felt in the situation.
Mhm.
And I'm also telling them that, look, this is what you did and I didn't like it. So it takes some time. Like sometimes like my son will come, Ash will come behind me and say, Mama, I have something to say. And he would say, I'm really sorry for not listening when you told us not to go on the road or something. And I'll be like, that's okay. I'm only rooting for your safety, or
Right.
and then you like tell them what it is that what the expectations. And that's another thing that I like to talk about. Like sometimes we go, like most parents are worried about their children's behavior when they go outside. And like we look at that, we say, look, when we want our children to learn math, we teach them.
Mm-hmm.
When we want our children to learn reading, we teach them. When we want our children to learn how to ride a bike, we teach them. But when we want our children to behave, we discipline them or we punish them,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the case. Most of the time, what we do is before we leave the house, I say, we set expectations. We're going to the store. And when we get to the store, we are not going to be touching stuff on the shelves. We will not touch stuff on the shelf. And I'm not going to promise them anything. I'm not going to tell them if you touch stuff on it, if you don't touch stuff, I will give you a candy or stuff like that. I do not. I'm not the parent for reward. I'll tell them, you guys, we're going to the store and I will not. Please telling you guys we shouldn't touch anything on the store. If you need something in your hand to keep you busy, tell me. I will find something. And most times, Tia would say, Mama, can I just have something to hold on to? We teach the expectations. So if you're a parent and you have expectations for your child and you sit your child down and you explain, look, this is what we expect. This is what we do. This is what we expect for you to behave when we go out. This is how we expect you to behave when people come to the house, when we have strangers over. These are our expectations. You tell them, you teach them, or you give them opportunities to talk about it. What do you think? How do you think we should behave when we go to the store? Should we be touching the stuff? No, we should not. That would be the result. So what can we do so that we don't touch stuff, so that we can have something to play with or something like that. So teaching expectations help children. They help them to behave. They know, so that when you see them, they are children. So you will talk about it, but when you get there, they will still do something. So then there's the reminder. But then instead of not teaching them and getting there like, I told you not to do this. You're not supposed to be touching the stuff on the store. Oh my God, you're frustrating me. But they didn't know how to behave before they got there. So teaching them and telling them what our expectation, we're going to the store, please, let's not touch stuff in the store. Let's keep our hands to ourselves. Use our eyes, not our hands. So when they start, I'm like, remember, we're using our eyes, not our hands. When people come over, what do? We can talk to them. We can say hi. We're not all over them. Okay. So when people come over and they're all over them, like, remember, they need their space. You guys are in their bubbles. And then you're reminding them so they will remember. And those are some of the things that help children develop that skill on how what they're supposed to do, especially if they don't know how to. They're young.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Just going back to when you talked about like having Ash or somebody, one of your kids, like remind you when you kind of are not, leading or doing the right thing. I was just thinking like that also is teaching the children how to self-advocate, and we, the parents, are probably one of the hardest people to advocate against because of, the love, the connection, whatever it is. So if they can advocate for themselves, like, with their parent, then imagine with the teacher or with their peers or even at work when they become adults with like their supervisors, So I think that's a really good thing
Yeah.
to do. I don't know.
Okay, so and this is for both of you, let's talk about this. As parents, we love our kids so much, and you want to see them uh, accepted by their peers and by other people. And that's not always the case with kids. They get together. Sometimes they won't play with somebody, and the next time they don't even want to be bothered with that person, right? How do you teach your children how to accept when they're not accepted, right? Or to manage those feelings when they are in a situation where kids don't want to play with them, or they're not invited into a circle of friends to play, especially for young children? What kind of conversation are you going to be having there?
So I have a lot of that to deal with at work and at home most of the time. And so one of the things we've done at home is we created these social stories that it's okay, because the thing is, there will always be children who will not want to play with them. And it's hard if they are not at home. It's harder because you're not there to see it. But then we can prepare them. Like I prepare my kids and I tell them it's okay. So we write this social story, especially for Tia, who wants to always play with somebody. And so we went to we came to the conclusion that, look, Tia, it's okay when somebody doesn't want to play with you. There are other options. What can you do? I can find somebody else. I can find somebody else who wants to play. And what other things you can do? She said, there are other fun things that I can do on my own. Is it possible for you to do those fun things on your own and just like wait until the person is able to play with you? Maybe they're playing with another friend and it's a 2-friend play. And so they would not want to play with you then. And then when they're willing to play with you, they can play with you. But it's okay sometimes when people don't want to play. And just constantly reminding them, like just helping them. For some children, it's hard to process. It's like they would cry, they would say, but that's not fair. Yes, it's not fair, but it's okay. And just constantly reminding them that it's okay. It's okay. As they're growing, their brain is developing, hearing that statement that it's okay, it's okay. Sometimes they will reach to the place where they'll tell themselves, it's okay.
Yeah.
And just constantly, that's one of the ways that I've been able to help my children at home and some of the children at school too.
Yeah, and even your kids are prime example where Ash and Tia are different. Tia is more outgoing, right, than Ash.
Yeah.
So that conversation might be a little different for Ash than it will be for Tia. You can say, okay, well, find somebody else to play with.
Mm-hmm.
Ash is something like Luke. He's not the one that will be, I mean, Luke would not be the one to go out there and say, to make friends, to go out and be the first to try to, befriend somebody or say, you know what, oh, let's go and do this. I always constantly, like every morning, I think we had the conversation that I have to constantly encourage him to be like, put yourself out there, talk loud for people to hear you. It's okay. You're so smart. You have a lot to offer. If somebody doesn't want to play with you here, go find somebody else to play with. But he is just not going to be that child that would be the first one to initiate something like that. So it's so
Yeah.
hard. Like you say, you have to observe your kid, know who know your kid inside and out before you even start making recommendations for what they should do. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Conversation looks a little different in my house because my daughter's older.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
for her, mostly it's about, I think I try to make her understands reasons why, like on that from that person's perspective. So maybe that person had a hard day. Maybe there's something, something that's happened that we're not aware of. Maybe they don't feel physically okay, There are
Mm-hmm.
different reasons so that there's some sort of empathy for that person as well, instead of it just being about me.
Them.
Because
Yep.
maybe it's something about that person that they just can't, they don't feel up to playing. And then I can sometimes remind her of, remember, um, such and such day when you did not want to talk to me, or it didn't mean that you disliked me. It's just whatever was happening with you that day. So
Mm-hmm.
all of those things can be helpful, um, in helping to remind my daughter about what it is that she can be expecting when it comes to other people.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
different depending on the child, the
Yeah, it
age.
is different. Like you said, Sammy, with Ash, most of the time, I mean, from like preschool days, Ash would cry a lot.
Mm.
He would cry and cry, and many days he would come home and tell me how sad he was because one of his friends or two of the friends were playing and they didn't play with him. And most of the time I'll tell him, if the teacher is open, it's okay to play with the teacher. You can go to the teacher. At home, when it's that way, I can like, you can play with me. Most times at home, it's okay because he has things that he can occupy himself with. Like he loves his
Yep.
Legos, so he will be able to find that. But at school, where they're scheduled to do this and do that, in that time when everybody's playing and there's this friend that he really wants to play with, they don't want to play with him, he will be crying. And so we've been able to work through it, like asking him, how many other friends do you have at school? Can you
Mm-hmm.
play with that? And it started getting better now as more and more time that when
Yeah.
somebody doesn't want to play with him, he's trying to move to another group. And so he will come home and tell you like he has 5 friends.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I can play with this friend and sometimes I can play with that friend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been working like little by little, but it's tough for
Yeah.
them at that age. It's really tough. And that's where this self-acceptance and that value comes in. Because most of the time when they're rejected by other friends, like that value, they kind of lose their self-value. So coming home and talking about their day and being able to tell you what happened in their day and how their day went will help their parent to assure them, like you can give your child the assurance that, look, some people don't want to play and it's okay, but you're still a friend. You can still fill other friends' buckets. You can still be kind to other friends. If somebody's being mean to you, it doesn't mean that they're actually mean. Maybe they're just having a moment at that time. So like just constantly reminding them and assuring them instead of like ignoring their feelings, like, well, that was not a big deal. Like the person don't want to play with you, forget about them.
Yeah.
So it's like not acknowledging their feelings. And then you're also like adding to their frustration, which is not good for their social competence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about this concept of like introversion and extroversion? We talk about it in the sense of like that child don't want to play with our child or your child, but what about in the sense where my child may be introverted more so than this other child? Because I know in our African community sometimes you see introversion and we call it selfishness. The child is just selfish,
Mm-hmm.
this person is just selfish,
Mm-hmm.
but we all know that that's different. That's introversion, that's just their preference. So how do you help them navigate that and kind of be able to settle in who they are as a person. Like I'm just not the social one that'll be, seeking out friends. I'm more introverted and be okay with that. What are some suggestions you would have for a parent who might have a more introverted child, for
Uh,
example?
I would say interest, and that's where the observation piece come in.
Okay.
Finding a level or meeting a child at the level of their interest is a big thing. I've dealt with a couple of children in my field or in my work wherein that child would not say a word, not a single word. But then that child finds something that they really like to do. And then you realize that as that child is doing that thing, and you start to talk about what the child is doing, because they love it, you will realize that that child will express themselves so well that you yourself will not even be able to, like, what? Is it that child? But yes, interest. Like, so talking about the introvert and the extrovert, my two kids, Ash is that way. Ash is the inner person. He is not the person that would just come out and talk or start a conversation or something like that. But he has things that he obsessed over. He has things that he really likes. So if you want to get him to talk, you just go there and just tell him, what are you building? Oh my goodness. You will not believe how that child will start expressing himself. On a normal basis, if you ask him a question, just like, hey, what do you think about it? He'll be like, like 10 different before he can say a sentence. But just go to him when he's building something and just asking about it. He would be like this. He would just blabber everything. He would tell you the background, why he's building it, what he got it from, how he learned it. And so interest is a big deal. Observing them and learning to know what they're interested in and just meeting them at the point of their interest will help them.
I also think like finding peers with similar interests, to kind of get them to build that sense of like self-efficacy and, just like a community to belong in. And depending on the interest, so like for example, I'm gonna use my daughter for a minute. She is really interested in anime, and she's really interested in a part of anime called cosplay. So cosplay is costume play, where you kind of dress up like the characters, and she does her TikTok things with those characters. But that is a very small, almost like specific community of people. You don't normally find them just walking around like, oh, I'm a cosplayer. So like trying to figure out where would you find a community of people that will kind of help her develop in that space, because I think she can be a little bit like, you know, guarded about it and not want to necessarily show it to everybody and what she's interested in. So you'll see her with, we do the hair, we do different things, but just to kind of play into some of her characters that she liked. But, that to me has been one of the biggest challenge for me to try to figure out other peers. I mean, she has kind of hold her own little community in the school, which I like, but like kind of finding more of that outside so that she can be able to express that herself that way and build that esteem. But it's just like you said, being very attentive to them, what they like, and into their interests, and trying to like build up on that, help them build themselves. I think
Yeah.
that's really important.
It plays a big part in it too. That's true.
hmm So finally, going forward, what are some things and thoughts you want to leave with people just about teaching and raising social emotional competent children?
Yeah. So one of the things I would like to stress is about when to teach a child like a skill, or like most of us from our background, behavior is a big thing for us. So you are in a situation where your child is quote unquote misbehaving, and then you start to teach the child right in the middle of the situation. That does not play out, because you're hide up, like you're hiding with your emotion, the child is hiding with emotion, and there is no teachable moment there. So during the time when you're calm down, the child is calm down, the child is probably playing or something, that is a good time to teach a skill. That's a good time to talk about, look, today something happened. You did this and you did that. And in this family, sometimes we talk about how we behave around other people. And how we behave around other people is important because as you grow up, you will meet a lot of people. You will learn to work with other people. You will have friends. You will have people to work with. And when you behave this way with other people, and they don't like it, you have to be able to work with them. So we talk, and then you are going to ask them about their feelings, their emotions, and then ask them what's the best way they think they can be able to like fit in the situation. So those are moments for teaching. Going forward, think about when to teach your child a skill, how to approach the child. What is the good time to talk about it? Do you think it's the best time to talk about it when you're angry and they're angry, or they're crying, or they're sad or frustrated about something? You're like, look, you're frustrated about this. You should not be frustrated. You should be able to try and keep trying and keep trying, you know? And so that would not help the child level of competence. It would not like build them up. You want to build them up to reach to that level where they're able to manage their emotion in a situation. You want to affirm, like when they are able to reach a goal. And that's one of the things about building social competence, that the children should be able to set and achieve goals. When they can set goals and achieve it, you are able to affirm them. So not just like pass over it, you know, just like I really like that you were able to make your bed today. You decided that you wanted to make your bed, and you did it. You did it all on your own without any help. That's a really good thing. I really like that. It hypes them up. Like children feel so confident. They feel like superheroes when you can tell them that, you know. And so those are some of the things that we need to give our children more. We need to affirm more positive behavior, because the behaviors that we affirm are the behaviors that children will continue to exhibit. Sometimes the ones that we keep putting down without helping them to manage it will be the ones that they will continue to exhibit, because we're not teaching them what is expected of them. Mm-hmm. Just like frowning on them, or putting them down for their behavior without like having that moment to teach them. So going forward, like affirm like positive behavior, expectations met, show them that they've been able to reach their goals. Also, let's just like let them make mistakes. Let them make mistakes. One of the things that one example is like one time Tia came to her dad and said, I want to go outside to play and ride my bike. And her dad said, Tia, it's really cold outside. And she's like, but I'm not cold. And so we said, okay, go. And she went outside and she got on her bike. 2 minutes, she was back inside the house. Yep. Like, what happened? I think I'm done riding my bike now. Really? Yeah. No, I'm not really cold. I just done riding my bike for today. She would not admit that she was, because it was freezing cold outside. Yeah. It looked like it was hot because the sun was up. But I mean, let them learn from their mistakes, as long as it's not putting them in harm's way. Yeah. Let them go. This is your decision. It's your choice. I always tell my children that you are responsible for your choices. Nobody made you do it. Even if somebody told you to do something bad, or somebody told you to do something, they are not the one who's forcing you to do it. You chose to do it. And when you do it, you will accept that you did it. And then you can learn from it. If it was a mistake, you learn from it. Like, oh, I learned that this thing happened, and then I will not do it again, or I will do it the other way next time. Mm-hmm. So like allowing them to make mistakes will really, really help them too. So those are some of the things that we need. Let the children make choices. Let them learn from it. Let them be able to make friends and talk to friends. Like, what are the rules of friendship? Like sharing or waiting. How can we do that? It's helping them to form that part of their lives and establish it, allowing them to share. And sometimes it's okay not to share. It's my stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't want to share it right now. It's okay for them to say, yes, I don't want to share. And that's fine. But we tell our children, you have to share. That's not kind. And no, we can tell them that it's okay when you don't want to share. When you're ready to share, you can either share it or take turns with it. And those are some of the things that help children develop that social competence, taking them to the way where they will be able to have those lasting relationships and tell people when somebody's like up in their face, they're able to say, look, I don't think I can do this right now. And That's where we want our children to go. I always see what is happening in the world today. Children get to the place where they're adults and they make poor decisions. We start them off making poor decisions when they're children.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we work with them now, when they get to the place of making decisions, forming relationships, and expressing themselves and their thoughts and their feelings, if we start them off now, they're able to manage those things when they get there.
Yeah, those are really, really good points. I think one thing I would like to add to, I'll come back to the piece where we're examples. You know, sometimes we say when you go out there, you know, you do this and you manage your feelings and you express yourself. But then when it comes to them doing that with us, then we look at it like if my son tells me no when I'm asking him to do something and I'm like, no, you have to do it. It's almost like causing that confusion in his mind that, you know, you said if I didn't, you know, if I feel like I don't want to do something, I don't do it, right? Or if I want to express myself, I can't express myself to my parents because then they think I'm disrespecting them, right? So we have to, again, it will go back to us just being that example and practicing what we tell them to do, right? And practicing what we're preaching, right? So like I would be sitting there and say, look, can you go do that for me? He's like, no, I don't feel like doing that. You know,
Right.
I respect that.
That's okay.
He doesn't have to do it because I'm his mom and I'm telling him to do it, you know. So
at what point then do we, you know, like insist that this must be done, you know? Because I'm thinking, you know, I
it
like
might be
the
in like
example.
every situation, right? Like
Right.
it's something that would benefit them.
Go brush your teeth. I don't feel like brushing my teeth.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
And
right. But I guess you explain the importance of doing that. And then so when you tell them, you don't have to be nagging them about it. I think, you know, for certain things now, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like, even if you tell them, like, this is the reason why you have to do it, they would tell you that. But I don't think
my teeth can fall off.
So I tell most of the time, I have to tell Tia, like, this one is not a choice.
Okay.
I am telling you to do it because it's best for you and I know what's best for you. So this is not a choice. There are a lot of things that you have choices with in your life. And then so this one is not a choice because it's your health and your health is your well-being. This one is not a choice. And so like sometimes you say, why don't I have a choice? It's like, because mama is looking out for you and papa is looking out for you. And so because we're looking out for you, we will make the choice for you this time. And then with the other things, you can make a choice. And even sometimes, like when they're like in a situation where she's crying and she's like, I want this thing. And I'm like, no, you can't have it. And she's like crying. I'm like, you have two choices. You can make a choice. You can either choose to cry and not have this thing, or you can choose to take a break, calm down, and come and have it. So those are your choices. So giving them the option, and then I ask her, what would be your choice? Like, I think I would just calm down and take it. And so like giving them that option to choose, like in those cases, but there's some things like as parents, we have to be able to say, this is not a choice. I am making the choice for you because I'm as your parent, I'm responsible for your well-being. And this has to do with your safety and your well-being. So I'll make the choice. And I know it goes long and long. Some children take longer time to process it. And so like sometimes you have to move away from the argument. Like tell them those are your choices and leave them to process, because some children would take a longer time to process. Some children will make their choices when you give it to them right away. Some won't. It will take a longer time.
Yeah. Because for us, when we tell Luke, you have to do this, this is what's important, like, you know, brushing your teeth, you know, these are the reasons why you have to do it. When you tell him to brush your teeth, you know, I mean, yeah, sometimes you have to remind him, because like when it comes to brushing teeth, sometimes it depends on the day, I guess, right? But then once you put in that reminder, they're like, okay, and then he will go do it, right? So it's not like we have to like argue about it and go through all of that. But there are times where, you know, like we're just sitting there and the remote control right there, and like, or, you know, what our parents used to do, come all the way from upstairs and can't give me that ring. You would be like, no. you get it yourself, Mom.
That one is a choice. Yeah, that's a choice. Like, I'm asking you to do this, and you're like, I really don't want to do it right now. So, okay, maybe next time you can help me do it, please.
Mhm.
And just allow them to process that situation. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm really tired. I'm really, really, like, sometimes like,
Yeah, when say you're tired
I
and
will, I
please
will
help
probably
me.
coax you to get it out.
Yeah,
But then the thing
yeah.
is, I respect that it's your choice. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so tired. My legs are tired. I can't, okay, I'll just go get it. But something like that, I realize that you're tired, but that's,
Yeah, not
Awesome.
it's a journey. It's I mean, and parents, I can say parents are the best because parents have a lot to deal with. We have so many things to deal with, like dealing with a whole different personality, somebody who's different, and you have to just like process what you're going to, like, every day you're like, oh, what today is going to look like. But we get through, and we get through every day. And I just like, I pride parents on having to just see their children through and follow with their children progress. It's a wonderful thing, and I think we can do it, we as parents.
Well, Jamesetta, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate all your knowledge and all your examples and experiences. I mean, I think this will be helpful for a lot of people going forward, even myself. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Jamesetta.
All right, you guys take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.